You're as cold as ice, willing to sacrifice our love. You never. Greetings and salutations. It is I, Mr. Nothing, the museum curator of the weird and the strange, and the host who might be a ghost. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual literature that I have found in my march up Sameth Naur, which is the volcano lair in Mount Doom. Would there actually be any books in Mount Doom? Seems like they'd all burn alive. But all the books that would be there would be hot commodities. Anyways, welcome back to my Lord of the Rings read-along series, where I talk about, every single Lord of the Ring book, 1 through 6 in the Sextilogy for the first time, because I have not read the series before. This is entirely new to me. So it's been quite a journey so far, because we have finally come, after thousands of pages, well, technically only like 900, but after so many pages, we have finally come upon book 6, the end of the series, the end of the trilogy, the Sextilogy. We finally finish Frodo's quest, and we see what happens to everyone afterwards, which is super exciting. One thing that I want to point out is, because of this little read-along series and my conversations with him, Lucas over at Bits of Lit has decided in September to start his own read-along series with the Lord of the Rings. He's actually read the book before, so he has he's coming at it from a perspective of maybe what did I not notice the first time, or what's super cool again, or something like that. So be sure to check that out when he does it, because I think his thoughts on the Lord of the Rings should be, a little fresh, a little different from mine, definitely. And so yeah, I wish you the best of luck, Lucas, as you work to prove whether you are a king of the Lord of the Rings, or you are just a simple Tark, which is orc slang. So lots of fun there. So let's get down to the series. Let's talk about the summary, a little analysis. This video is probably going to be super long because there's so much jam-packed in this story. And if it's going to be long, it's gonna go a little long. We will see what's what. So the focus on this story is, well, at least in the beginning, it's on Sam and Frodo, before later moving on to the conclusion of everyone else's stories after the war ends. So with that said, what happened? So at the conclusion of the last story, Aragorn and company had marched to the Black Gates and were waiting for the battle to begin. It began, and they were all kind of hoping that Frodo would do his thing before the battle turned out the worst for them, because there were a lot of bad dudes against Gondor. But even before that, in book 4, the conclusion of that was that Frodo was taken captive by the orcs in Cirith Ungol, and Sam was trying to rescue him. So that's where the story starts here, with Sam trying to find his way into Cirith Ungol. He has the ring, and he's finding that he's already being tempted to put on the ring some more, but Sam is doing his best to resist it, and he's mostly successful because he's had it for a short amount of time, thankfully. Sam makes his way into the tower, and he finds that the orcs have been fighting and not getting along, and they've started killing one another. Two of the orcs specifically fighting over who's in charge, Shagrat and Gorbag, which are lovely names. My first child will be named Gorbag. Please accept this knowledge at this time. Sam does fight a few orcs, but I believe it's Gorbag or Shagrat, one of the two, who managed to flee with the Mithril vest and Sam and Frodo's tokens. Which apparently that is what happened in the last story, like because the Mouth of Sauron showed those tokens to Aragorn and company, leading them to believe that he was captured. But it turns out it was really more of a ploy because. Sauron didn't actually have Sam and Frodo. It was a trick. Sam eventually finds Frodo, who's completely naked, and he notes that the orcs have taken everything from him. But they manage to put on orc gear, and everything is okay there. But Sam still has the ring, and Frodo demands that he give it back, and he's kind of aggressive about it, much like how Bilbo was when at Rivendell. Showing the influence that the ring has on Frodo at this point. But also, he might just be considering Sam like he doesn't want that ring's influence on Sam at all. And it might lead them to fight even more. So Frodo might know that, or he just might be under the influence of the ring and very precious-y about that. They managed to leave Cirith Ungol and make their way officially into Mordor as the Nazgul arrive. So the Nazgul has taken over the tower, and they gotta sort of hide as they're walking around because they don't want the Nazgul to catch them. There's pretty much very little cover once they enter Middle-earth. Just a bunch of craggy rocks, and the only way they can really hide from anything is to be undercover. Or even disguise themselves as orcs. But they're marching to the volcano, and they know, they're going to know that two orcs marching toward a volcano aren't really orcs. So they got to be extra careful here. As they're marching through Mordor, they hear the Nazgul cry because the Witch King has died in Gondor and the battle thing. They're taking more risks. They're starting to drink water, which is probably a mistake. But they keep saying they're very thirsty, and the air in Mordor is very hot because of the volcano. And I can't blame them for drinking any of the available water they can find. They encounter some orcs who note that Gollum might still be around. So, and I believe that Frodo and Sam even see Gollum sneaking around. So they gotta be wary of not only the orcs and the Nazgul, but also this tiny deformed creature dude who wants to reclaim the ring through any means necessary, and has shown that he's willing to kill to get it. So that's something that's weighing on their minds as well. While they're marching alongside the road, they stop and sort of disguise themselves because a bunch of orcs who are marching come by them, and they mistake Frodo and Sam for orcs, and they're like, "What are you doing? We got to march towards Udun, I believe it's called, which is just one of the various places in Mordor, so that they can be waiting by the Black Gates, essentially preparing for war." And they go there, and there's a little hubbub that allows Sam and Frodo to escape and just start marching back towards the volcano. And it should be noted, this takes place over the course of several days. They say we're 40 miles from the volcano. It's going to take 7 more days or so to get there. And Frodo is every step of the way is dying and just doesn't want to go. And Sam has to cajole him just a little bit more, Frodo, just a little bit more. And Frodo is having none of it. And around this time, Sam is still trying to get the ring from Frodo, just so he can bear the responsibility and take some of the load off of Frodo. Frodo's still not having any of it. And Sam also realizes that he's probably gonna die. Even if you complete the quest, he thinks, how are you going to get back? You wasted all your resources getting to Mordor. And that's got to be a scary thing to realize. Something that maybe Frodo isn't thinking about right now, but Samwise is. And he's thinking on the positive again. He's like, I guess I'll be seen as a hero then. That's my fate. It's worth it to get rid of the evil Lord Sauron. And I think that's why I like Samwise. He's thinking on the positive, but he accepts the fate that's being given to him. But not he still fights for something better, which I appreciate and like about him. Yeah, they're hungry, hopeless, tired, and very thirsty as they approach Mount Doom. And Frodo collapses, and Sam's like, "Well, I can't. You won't give me the ring, and because that would help you at least somewhat. But since you won't let me do that, I'll carry you," which is very heroic and manly, and very cool of Sam. And he carries him up Doom for a tiny bit before Golem attacks. And also Sauron's eye focuses on them, so they gotta quickly hide to make sure that Sauron doesn't see them. But Sauron's eye also quickly moves back to the Black Gates because Aragorn's army is amassing, and Aragorn and Gandalf are probably smart in doing this because they might lose the battle if Frodo doesn't finish his job, but at least they buy him time and distract him, which is always nice. Yeah, Golem attacks, as I mentioned, at this time. And so Frodo's just go into Mount Doom, in the Sammath Naur, which is the forge inside the volcano, where the ring was made. So again, being destroyed at the place you were created, very thematic there. Sam fights Gollum, and Gollum is like, "Please don't kill me," and so he sends Gollum off. And Sam heads inside the volcano forge, but Tolkien notes that if Sam had watched Gollum for a little bit longer, he would have saw him turn around. So Gollum he really wants that ring, and he's willing to risk his own death to get it, which is very admirable, but not what we need right now. Sam gets in the chamber, and Frodo is just standing there, and he's like, "Are you gonna destroy it, buddy?" And Frodo's like, "No, I don't think I am. I think I'm going to keep it for myself." And he puts on the ring and disappears. And for a brief moment, as you're reading that, what the hell, Frodo? It's so dark and sad, and is this it? But Sam doesn't have any time to react to this, because at that same time, he gets hit with a bunch of rocks. Golem attacks Frodo, bites off one of his fingers, and finally Golem gets back the ring, and it's huzzah. And when Frodo put on the ring to begin with, Sauron immediately sensed where he was at, and Tolkien writes Sauron realized he made a big mistake, leaving Sammath Naur there, because that's what the hobbits used to get in there, and he sent all the Nazgul he could to get to the volcano. But it's going to be too late, because he was distracted by the Black Gates, the war, and now he doesn't he underestimated the hobbits, so not good for him, and ultimately proving to be his downfall. As Gollum bites off Frodo's finger and gets the ring, he celebrates, and he takes the wrong step and falls into the cracks of Doom, killed by the lava, and that means the ring is killed by lava. But Frodo and Sam don't have a chance to celebrate because everything erupts into chaos. Yeah, seriously, the volcano starts falling apart and erupting, and the Nazgul just go crazy, and Barad-dûr, the tower that Sauron is in, just collapses, which can be seen from the battle at the Black Gates, suggesting that everyone knows that Frodo finished his quest. And Frodo and Sam at this point are just standing there, and Sam's well, for Sam and Frodo are well, I'm glad we had the chance to do this together. I'm glad I'm here with you at the end, which is just heartwarming and it's sad, but very heartwarming, because Tolkien, you really get the feeling that these two are great friends, and Frodo's burden is off of him, and they can possibly die, at peace, knowing they finished their quest. But that's not going to happen. They're not going to die. That would be a little too bleak, I think. And Tolkien thinks it would be bleak. So as the battle rages on, and some troops are starting to flee at the Black Gates now because of what just happened, the Eagles show up, who I'm only just now learning about. They're mentioned in book 5 too, but at the very end, how they were part of Bilbo's quest, and But I didn't know anything about like who the Eagles were and that they had names and could talk apparently. But they do, and like Gandalf greets them and is like go get Frodo and Sam, which they do. Apparently saved from the Nazgul, which might be still around. Might be hunting for Sam and Frodo as they wait for rescue or to die even from the volcano. The battle ends pretty much there. The troops are in retreat, and anybody who's still left fighting is getting killed by Aragorn and company. So successful times are to be had. That's pretty much where the story should have ended, but it didn't. Thus, we have a whole bunch of reunions going on with Sam and Frodo learning that Gandalf is still alive, for one. Like, they're very happy about that. Probably a weight lifted off of Frodo's mind as he no longer views Gandalf's death as his fault. But he's still probably going to view it as his fault because what if Gandalf hadn't survived? Thinking about those what ifs and whatnot. They're also reunited with Merry and Pippin, which is nice. Like they finally get to talk about their individual stories and how they've grown so much, which is nice. And then a whole bunch of epilogues happen, which some of them I don't care for, some of them I do enjoy. Faramir and Eowyn get together. I don't care for that. And it seems to only exist just so Faramir can be like, I renounce my kingship. You can be king now, Aragorn, which is fine for Aragorn, but like, does that mean Faramir only exists and only survived just so he can make Aragorn king? Aragorn becomes king, marries Arwen. Things are looking nice for her. Treebeard frees Saruman from Orthanc, and they end up catching up to Sauron as they're marching back to the Shire. And Gandalf tries to plead with Saruman, for help, or to help him and to set him straight again, because they were apparently friends at one time, but Saruman betrayed him, and he just wants. It seems like Gandalf wants what's best for Saruman, but Saruman is prideful and totally embarrassed that his plan to overthrow Sauron didn't work, and embarrassed that he was kind of one-upped by a bunch of trees and hobbitses. So he's just like, I'm leaving, leave me alone. And he marches off with Grima Wormtongue, who seems utterly terrified of Saruman. As they make their way back to the Shire, they make their way to Frog something, or whatever, I don't really care about it, Bywater, and they discover that the Sackville Bagginses, who were Bilbo's heirs, and were unhappy that he gave the ring to Frodo to begin with, have allied themselves with Saruman, and have pretty much started a little civil war in the Shire, and are making things worse. And I absolutely hate this battle, and anyone who says that they like the Battle of the Bywater is a cop, because it comes after the main story, and it doesn't feel necessary at all, and it only stands to make Saruman look like a little jerk face. Anyways, the hobbits, because of their new experience, they're able to successfully win the battle, and they discover that Saruman is responsible, pleading with him to change his ways, and he's like, no thanks, buddy, and then Grima Wormtongue kills him, and the hobbits respond by killing Grima Wormtongue. So, unnecessary bloodshed, the last bloodshed, as Tolkien notes, take place in the Shire. So that's nice, but weird way to kill off Saruman, who's an interesting character, but it's kind of given a weak send-off, in my opinion. As Frodo is living in Hobbiton, Bag End, Sam notes that he has a bunch of his injuries, like Shelob's injury and this original injury from the Dark Riders. They're persistent, and they never seem to go away. And on their anniversary, they flare up again. And Frodo is a little changed. He doesn't recognize the Bag End anymore. He doesn't he doesn't seem like the same person after going on this quest, and that's pretty normal. But he seems downtrodden about everything. And then one day he just comes up to Sam and he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go to the Grey Havens, which is elf paradise or elf heaven, some sort of thing." Which Frodo has been invited to because he was a ring bearer. When Frodo gets on the boat, Sam, Merry, Pippin, and Gandalf show up, and Gandalf has one of the original 3 rings, which I don't know what they do because it's very vague, and Gandalf doesn't use it at least once, so I don't really care about that. Anyways, Sam and Frodo have a very emotional send off, which I started to cry reading it, and I was like, no, don't leave Sam, Frodo. He's your best friend. Stay with him. And but they both agree that this is probably the best for Frodo at this time, and they'll be reunited at one point because Sam held the ring at one point, so he'll be able to join the Grey Havens, presumably, down the road. And that's where the story ends, with Frodo being sent off and Samwise really he becoming mayor and other good things happening down the road. So that's pretty much where it ends. So a great story, a wonderful story. I'm absolutely happy to have read it. Book 6 is phenomenal. The epilogue gets a little murky as it goes along, but I'm still happy to have read it. I will talk about in my final big analysis video, which is probably coming out on Friday or Saturday. More about the stuff I noticed and whether or not I liked it, but I did like it, and I did like the series as a whole, and I'll explain why about that down the road. But first, let's talk about what I noticed in this specific book, and elaborate on that. One thing that I really liked about this story was how the ring resisted destruction. It was as if the ring was sentient and knew that it was in Mordor. It probably did know it was in Mordor, and so it sought ways to avoid being destroyed in Mount Doom. It seemed to call out to others, because Gollum managed to follow them, and the Nazgul could sense that they were in Mordor now. So they could look around, and they were trying to find Frodo and Sam. You could also argue that the Eye of Sauron was he knew the general area, but he didn't know the specific place, and so he was never able to find Frodo and Sam. Another way, the ring tries to avoid its destruction is by weakening Frodo. Frodo can barely continue. He can only walk short distances at a time. He has to nap and eat frequently to avoid just utterly losing all hope. And he's starting to say that he's seeing the ring in his waking life now. He usually can only see it in his dreams, but now he's seeing it while he's awake. And so the ring is doing everything in its power to scare him, to intimidate him, to make sure that he can't continue. But luckily he does have a Samwise on his journey to help him overcome that sense of evil that the ring is exhibiting. And it really shows how strong evil is. Tolkien didn't want to simply make a half-assed ring here. He wanted to show that evil has many methods for stopping you, to preventing your journey from continuing. And I do like that he showed all those different ways, and really gave the ring full power to try to hinder this quest in any way possible. I also think it's very fascinating how Frodo loses hope. We saw that in the 4th book, with Frodo pretty much saying the only thing that's keeping me going is the thoughts of those who have died, and if I don't continue, they'll die in vain. At one point Frodo says the orcs have taken everything. They have taken everything. And I get the sense that it's not just his clothes that they took. I get the sense that it's everything. Everything, every hope he had, every feeling of joy he had. By the time they get to Cirith Ungol, it's gone. By the time they get to Mordor, he is a shell of the person he was, and this ring is going to kill him the longer he has it. And I really enjoyed that, because it fleshes out Frodo's character. It shows the effect the ring is having on him, the effect this journey is having on him. It's not just Frodo going about this quest and overcoming any obstacle. A lot of these obstacles are killing him, and a lot of these obstacles are working. And that's what I think is wonderful about Tolkien's way he writes Frodo, and Tolkien's way that he shows this loss of hope. The entire chapter about Mount Doom is awesome, in my opinion. Just everything from like them sneaking away from the orcs at Udun to making their way to the volcano, and Frodo's hopelessness, and how Sam has to carry him. Samwise's battle with Gollum, but Gollum doesn't necessarily walk away from this. And then at the very last part, Frodo, like, in a total combination of giving up hope and like the ring overtaking him, he decides, I'm going to keep the ring. And that is wonderful writing on Tolkien's part, because, as I mentioned before, like, you are not strong enough to overcome evil, which I think is what Tolkien is trying to say. Or evil is so strong that you need a friend to battle it with, which is why Samwise is so helpful. So when Frodo refuses to destroy the ring initially, like, you wonder, like, what's going to happen. Like, it's near the very end of the chapter, and it lasts for only a few moments before Gollum intervenes. But it's such a beautiful, like, picture in my head of, like, oh no, everything has gone wrong. So allow me to read to you a little section that I thought was interesting from that bit. Master, cried Sam. Then Frodo stirred and spoke with a clear voice. Indeed, with a voice clearer and more powerful than Sam had ever heard him use. And it rose above the throb and turmoil of Mount Doom, ringing in the roof and walls. I have come, he said, but I do not choose now to do what I came to do. I will not do this deed. The ring is mine. And suddenly, as he had set it on his finger, he vanished from Sam's sight. And I just think, like, that's really good writing. And it's just like an apex of a story that's already reaching really top heights. Like you just get to this point where, like, everything has led to this moment, and it might fail because the one thing the ring is designed to do did what it was designed to do. Yes, so wonderful. I could go on forever, and I might do that in an analysis video, but yeah, really good. There were a couple things that I thought were underwhelming or not as good. The battle at the Black Gates, like, was kind of vague, especially in book 5, but also here, because like it goes back to the Black Gates battle right as it's ending, and you don't get much of a description of the heroicisms that take place in the battle. So that's unfortunate. I also don't like that there's no physical presence of Sauron. Like, you do get a description of him, like, as Frodo puts the ring on in Mount Doom, and like Sauron like feels that and is like, we have to stop them before they do something dangerous. And like I enjoyed that, but there's not enough Sauron. Like, nobody defeats Sauron. Like, you defeat the concept of Sauron. Like, I thought Aragorn was going to fight Sauron at one point, because, like, king versus king, you would get something like that. But you don't. And I feel like it drags down the story a tiny bit, because you're just fighting the concept of evil. And, like, that's the Bible right there. Did he just write the Bible by mistake? I get the feeling. But if you think that Sauron doesn't need to be present, feel free to comment below why. I would love to hear from you there. And then finally, the last thing I didn't like were the endless epilogues. I liked Aragorn rising to the throne, and Gandalf, some of the things he was talking about, and the goodbye from Sam and Frodo, but a lot of it was unnecessary. I didn't care for Eowyn and Faramir getting together. It only seemed to further Aragorn's story by allowing him to become king, and it just dragged on. And the Battle of Bywater especially, like, it seems like another battle after the story has already ended, and I believe that Tolkien, like, much like Peter Jackson, didn't know how to end the story, which is fair. A lot of people don't know how to end their story. I don't know how to end the stories I write sometimes. So, like, like, that's a problem, and I'm not gonna, like, hold it against Tolkien, especially because the rest of the story is so great. But it does like, why are we still continuing to read about this story? You could have ended it many pages ago, but yet you continue. much to the detriment of the characters at times. That's unfortunate. It is hard to say goodbye, and doesn't Tolkien know it? Anyway, that was my summary analysis for the 6th book. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and because I made it through the 6 books, this is a strong recommendation, as if I need to recommend it to anybody. Like, if you haven't heard of The Lord of the Rings by now, why are you watching this video? Like, if you pretty much made up your mind, but I strongly suggest, if you haven't read it before, don't make the mistake that high school Mr. Nothing did, and actually go out and read it, because it's a fascinating story with a lot of like juicy bits, and a lot of like, you can see how it influenced other stories down the road, and like pretty much created the fantasy genre. Like, and it might have existed before, but like I feel like Tolkien put it on the map with this 3-volume trilogy, sextilogy, if you will. Absolutely, I loved it, and I'll talk more about what I loved specifically and why this story is so great on Friday when I release the big analysis video. If you have anything to say about the 6th book, which is Return of the King, feel free to comment below. We can have a discussion, and we can see what's cooking, and we can talk about how sad it is that Saruman got such a weak ending. But otherwise, feel free to like, share, and subscribe so that other people may find out about this read-along series, and they join us, whether they are longtime appreciators of Tolkien or newcomers to the author. Until then, I wish you the best of times in your weird and hobbity travels. Farewell.